Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I actually wanted to go off on a bit more of a tangential subject than I normally talk about. Usually I try to stay more focused on news, but wanted to kind of mention something that I've noticed recently and that might actually have some merit, and that is that the ability to select your role, having role selection in all queues for the most part, I think actually might be a bad thing and hurting players that play this game. Now, if you want to know what I mean by that, essentially the issue is, think about it this way. So back in the day, when I first started learning to play League of Legends, and when back in Season 2, you didn't have the ability to select your role for draft or ranked. You essentially got loaded into a lobby. You would still have the normal draft picking, so you would have to, blue side got their first pick, then red side picked two, blue side picked two, etc., etc. However, players weren't assigned to a particular role. Instead, there was no assignment whatsoever, and players were essentially incentivized to call out whatever role it was that they planned on playing. So putting mid into chat said that you wanted to play mid. Now the problem is that this often led to players multi-calling the same role and then fighting over the role, saying I called it first, no you didn't, because there were a lot of issues with the text displaying. If you loaded in early, you were almost guaranteed to be able to call your role first. If you loaded in late, you were almost guaranteed to never get your particular role. So there were a lot of issues with this particular setup, but for the most part it did work out. And the biggest thing about it though is that if you generally weren't the kind of person to say mid or feed in chat, which I don't think a lot of people do nowadays. But if you weren't the kind of person to say mid or feed, usually you're all right with filling. So even if you really wanted to play mid or AD carry or jungle or what have you, and someone else called it before you, usually you were all right then at that point saying, all right, I'll fill. Or especially if they had a pick above you and they just picked their jungler, even if you called it properly and they picked jungle and you weren't able to get it, you would usually be all right with filling. And now the thing about this is, yes, that wasn't ideal. It did mean that quite often you didn't get the position that you wanted to play, especially if what you wanted to play was something highly contested, like mid lane or top lane at the time. But what it also meant is that if you had to play one of these other positions, that you at least were somewhat competent, because you knew that there was a possibility that you were going to get filled with the support position or the jungle position or what have you, and so you'd better have a champion prepared for this. Even if it was just one or two, there was at least something you could always play in every position because you had to have that option. Now fast forward to role selection. The advantage it gives is that each player is assigned something by the game itself, and they are guaranteed that position, especially if you have autofill protection enabled and you pick top or mid, you are guaranteed to get top or mid in the next game. And this happens most of the time. I would say players get filled very, very rarely. I can't even remember the last time I actually got filled. It seems like it doesn't happen very often. You are going to get your primary role like 90% of the time, I would be willing to bet. Now, this is great because it does mean that if you are primarily a top lane player or a jungler or a support or what have you, that you're more likely to get the position you are most skilled on, which is a big deal, and that's really, really important. However, at the same time, it means that when players do get filled, that they've spent 90% of their time playing their preference. So if I'm a Swain main, let's say, and I do nothing but play Swain top, I play him mid, I do nothing but play Swain, and because 90% of the time I'm guaranteed top or mid, the 10% of the time I get filled to support or jungle or whatever, I unfortunately don't have anything else I can play, because I have spent so much of my time playing Swain that any support champion I might be somewhat okay on, I haven't played in the last 10 games, let's say. So you get significantly less experience on it, and overall that means that you're going to be a lot more of a liability to your team if you have to support or if you have to play in the jungle. And that's sort of the interesting disadvantage that role queue brings. I think it's great because you are able to play the position you want to play more often. And this counts even if you want to play something off role. If you're normally a top laner and you decide, I want to play jungle because I just got a new Hecarim skin and I wanted to try it out, or I've heard that Kha'Zix is really good and I want to play that champion, or what have you, then it's a lot easier to guarantee that you'll get it as opposed to having to try and call it and everything in the old system. However, at the same time, I think that the new system incentivizes having a lot shallower champion pools. I think back in the day, it was very common for everyone to have at least something they could play, but nowadays, I think if you were to ask a lot of people who started playing since Role Queue came out, you're going to find a lot more players who say, I can't support, or I can't jungle, or I'm not very good at this particular position. And that's because they haven't had to learn at all how to play these positions because, like I said, 90% of the time, you're playing the position you specifically want. And I think that one of the things that makes a player good at League of Legends, especially in solo queue, is adaptability and the ability to play multiple different things and fill multiple different roles. And I've talked about this previously before when I've discussed champion pools, but having multiple different things that you can do as opposed to one tricking or playing the same champion over and over again. Even maining a champion, I think, is problematic to a certain extent, because I think that the best players are able to always adapt their playstyle to whatever it is they're looking to do. The ability to say, oh hey, Akali is up, I don't normally play Akali, but I'm not going to let the enemy team pick her, so I'll grab it. Or they have a very heavy AD composition, I'm going to play Rammus or Malphite into this composition because I can play these champions. I've learned to play them. This is a situational pick. Normally I would play something else, but in this situation it works. Or the ability to at least have something, so if you do get filled, well, I'm not that great at support, but I can play Sona at the very least. That kind of a thing, I think, is a good asset to have as a League of Legends player, especially when you end up in these sort of autofill situations. And I think that role queue, to a certain extent, has kind of hurt that. Now, would I go back to the old system? Guaranteed no. There is no way I would want to go back to having to call my role in chat and then ending up supporting 90% of the time anyways, in mid or feed trolls and all that kind of thing. 100%, I do not want to go back to that situation. But it is the kind of thing that I wonder if it would make more sense for Riot to incentivize playing multiple different positions. And that's one of the reasons I think that positional-based matchmaking, especially for ranked, might be an interesting concept. The idea being that, wow, I can't really climb at all on top lane, I'm not doing very well, let me try playing support. Or just getting multiple rewards for being in these situations, for being able to say, wow, I want to get all of these skin chromas or all these different ranked rewards, so I'm going to try and hit gold in every position, incentivizing players who both are able to play lots of things successfully, but also who are willing to branch out and learn other things. I think that could be a very interesting experiment that Riot are doing here with the sort of positional matchmaking, and might incentivize players to kind of go back to the original way the game was played, where you had to have something for everything. But these are just kind of my random snowball-y thoughts from someone who's been playing this game for way too long. So go ahead and let me know what you guys are thinking of any of this down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you were around as well in the days of calling positions and getting mid or feed trolls and that sort of a thing. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts about if you think that positional matchmaking is nothing but benefit. No, I'd much rather always be able to play my position, or if there is still benefit to learning to play multiple different positions and champions. Anyways, go ahead and let me know all that down in the comment section below. Would love to hear your thoughts, like I said. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for more Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, which is linked down in the description below. I upload an article just about each and every single day for your enjoyment. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all later.